The following entries are from a journal found near the entrance of the U.S. military base in and are believed to be a key part in an extremely unusual multiple homicide and missing persons case. The names of the victims were and the missing person is believed to be. This person is believed to have written this before they went missing, and it is also believed they suffered from some form of schizophrenia and/or psychopathy based on these entries. June 28th, 12:35 p.m. Woohoo! High school is over. Finally, I escape that shithole and move on with my life. And allow me to tell you what direction I plan to move that life in, dear book I'm writing in, who I pretend actually cares about what I'm saying, because, nobody else does. That direction is this. Number stations. I'm going to assume that you, book, don't know what those are, so I can explain it and feel smart, because I'm a sad, lonely fuck. Number stations are shortwave frequency radio stations with unknown origins that broadcast numbers, which are thought to be information for spies. There used to be a lot more of them during the Cold War, and they've tapered off since, though a few are still active, and I thus plan to research the shit out of them and learn everything there is to know, including all the conspiracy theories undoubtedly tied to them. Wish me luck, book. You're the only one who will. Sad face. June 31st, 8:04 p.m. Not much to report. Making good headway. My friends are mostly all off on vacations, and I'm just sitting here in my underwear, watching Mythbusters reruns half the time and researching number stations the other. It's a sad life I live, but at least cool mysteries like these exist to brighten it. July 7th, 10:27 a.m. So, I've researched and I've found one number station I love. It's sometimes more officially referred to as Enigma XM, but is often called the Backwards Music Station, abbreviated as BMS. Of course, it doesn't actually play backwards music, but because of what it does play, I sort of wish it did. It's a string of high-pitched, grinding, distorted screeches, sometimes interspersed with loud banging or crackling. It sounds like someone lowered the mic into the bowels of hell itself. It's rumored to still be broadcasting to this day and be coming from either several US naval bases in America or a US naval air base in Sicily. It's also said that occasionally the BMS broadcast was interrupted by hard-to-make-out human speech, but as far as to my knowledge, no recordings of this exist. Some say this is something like WebDriver Torso was, just an unattended malfunctioning piece of equipment spewing out garbage that those who don't know any better assign value and meaning to, but I don't know, I say it's more. Much, much more. July 9th, 3:56 p.m. Amazing things have happened. I have been, and still am, trying all sorts of different things with recordings of the BMS broadcast. One thing I've done is sped it up, and at a certain point, the broadcast almost sounds like speech. I'm almost sure I'm onto something here. I'm excited and scared for what I might find next. July 9th, 7:49 p.m. I've done it. I've decoded the broadcast, and I know what it's saying, but I can't tell why it's coming from US military bases. It's not saying anything related to the military, or really anything for that matter. I found that, at least the recording I have, consists of a single message being played on loop, and it says no fucking clue what it means. Sounds like some kind of cult garbage. I mean, what the hell's this stuff, and who's... Ugh, well, at least I figured it out, disappointing as the message may be. July 10th, 5:16 a.m. Oh my god. This can't be real. This can't be happening. And yet it did. It's so totally fucking did. I I woke up about 2 hours ago from the most terrifying dream I've had in a long time. Or was it a dream? I have no idea. All I remember is I awoke, or thought I did, to the feeling of, say, when your foot falls asleep, like that feeling like thousands of needles under your skin. It was on my cheek. I opened my eyes and saw long fingers caressing my face. These weren't any normal fingers. No, they seemed to be made of static, the same static that appears on an old television turned in between channels. They jittered and shook as they moved. One could perhaps say they appeared to glitch, as if reality itself was having macro blocking failure. My eyes followed the long, gangly fingers to a hand, which led to a spindly arm, which led to... well, all I remember is the face. Shaped like a traditional Roswell alien's head, made of the same static the fingers and arm were, with no features except for 2 voids where its eyes should have been. There wasn't any glare off a dark sclera, no white at the edge of the circle, nothing to tell me I was looking at anything other than 2 abysses blacker than anything I had seen. As I stared into them, the infernal howls of backwards music station filled my mind, echoing and rebounding off the walls of my skull. We could have been there for hours gazing at each other, or perhaps it was only moments. Time didn't exist inside the hell that was that thing's eyes that tried to become the inside of my head. Eventually, the thing fled. It crawled like a boneless spider out through my window and was gone. Well, it didn't really go through my window so much as... how do I describe this? It warped its way through. It distorted and stretched the frames somehow, and the pain just sort of floated out. Once there was an opening, it left, and that's when I awoke. I whipped the covers off me in a frenzy and saw I was drenched in sweat. The noise of the station still rang in my ears. I turned on all the lights in my room, locked the window, and curled up on the floor in a fetal position. What in God's name had just happened? I mean, what the fuck was that? I don't know. Ed was too in shock to care. I just lay there, and all the while I could sense the BMS broadcast at the very edge of my hearing. And I now decide to stop researching this. I'm fucking done. July 18th, 4 o'clock p.m. So, nightmare stopped about 3 days after the incident. Well, I'm not sure whether they were really nightmares or not, but I have to have faith that they were. Otherwise, well, I might have gone mad by now. After they stopped, I decided to do some research to try and find out if anyone else working on the BMS had experienced anything like this before. My efforts were in vain, as nothing at all turned up, but I thought bitterly and jokingly perhaps the only ones to experience this never lived to tell the tale. I shivered at my own dark humor and promptly stopped thinking about the creature. On the upside, I can no longer remember what the BMS sounds like, and my friends have invited me to a get-together happening tomorrow. They say the main purpose is something one of them just heard about, which was some study done by some psychologist. In it, participants were placed in a dark room and asked to stare at each other, and this caused certain hallucinations of various morphings of the other person's face. I think something fun and thrilling like this might distract me from my recent trauma, so I'm going. July 19th, 10:24 p.m. I bring you everywhere I go, books, so I now write this in the bathroom of the friend's house I've just arrived at. as I was walking here in the night, I saw something. I can't be sure of what it was, and I don't really want to be sure of what it was. Maybe it was just some trick of the orange sodium arc light that bathed the streets I walked, or maybe it was something else. Whatever it was, it certainly appeared to be an extremely elongated, gangly shadow cast on brick walls. It jolted and slithered on thin limbs and always seemed to be behind me. I have to hope it was nothing. July 19th, 11:58 p.m. I really have nothing to say. I don't know what to say, or if there's anything I could possibly say about this. All I can do is tell you, Buck, what happened. Perhaps that will preserve my tenuous grasp on sanity. I can only hope. After my arrival, we sat and talked, caught up with each other, ate snacks and drank things. There were 4 other people there, and I knew all of them well. They spoke and laughed and such, blissfully unaware of the horrors that were to befall them later this evening. I did the same, equally unknowing. Then one of them brought up the topic of the actual purpose of this party. He told us not to participate if we were easily scared, and of course we all shouted that we weren't. We rose and he led us to his basement. It wasn't too dirty or dingy, but it was certainly a basement, and not any kind of living space. He dimmed the lights in the room and then instructed us on what was going to happen. We would take turns, one of us staring at the other 4 until they got too freaked out to continue, then swapping out with someone else and becoming part of the group of 4. The party's host was first to go. We sat on the ground and he stared intently at us. At first he seemed very focused, obviously looking for any immediate changes. Then his look began to grow more and more concerned until it was downright fearful. Beads of sweat began to stand out on his face and his eyes flicked from one of us to the next. After some time he shut his eyes tight, shook his head, and relief spread across his face when he opened them again. He slowly got up and sat in our row, and another went to take his place. Her reaction was much the same as his, the only difference being at one point she yelped in fright. And then another went, and another. And then it was down to me. I took my place, sitting before the group, and waited for the changes to occur. Within a few moments, they did. The first change appeared with the girl on the far left. Her nose began to erase itself, and her chin elongated. Half of her hair disappeared, and her left eye contracted to a pinpoint. Then a person in the middle right began to warp. His cheeks shrank inward until they were skeletal, and his face seemed to melt, leaving nothing but grinning skull with eyes. As for another, her mouth moved up to the right, and then her face completely disappeared, leaving only a smooth, uniform surface. And the last one's eyes began to move outwards in opposite directions, leaving deep tracks in the face as they did so, and his mouth morphed into a grotesque, inhuman smile, with too many teeth to count. As all of this occurred, I thought I could almost hear the stretching of flesh and the grinding of bone as my friend's features rearranged themselves. And as I began to listen closely to the silence, I heard something that seemed vaguely familiar and unsettling at the very limit of my hearing. It slowly grew louder and louder as the faces before me grew more and more unreal, and all too late I recognized it. Then the lights went out. The blackness lasted for some moments, and it was completely silent. I rose in the darkness and waited. When the lights came back on, it took a moment for me to register what was in front of me, and when I did, I screamed. I screamed and screamed. The girl who I noticed the changes occur first lay writhing on the ground, clearly in some sort of seizure. And all the changes I had witnessed in the hallucination they were real. Her left eye was minuscule, her nose was missing and smoothed over, her chin struck out like a violin, and half of her scalp was bald. The one whose face had melted was slouched over, the bloody surface of its skull glistening in the dim light. The girl whose features had disappeared was desperately clawing at her own missing face, leaving bleeding scratch marks on the smooth skin, muffled screams escaping her. The one whose grin became terrifying was lying on the floor, his head turned to the side, his eyes on the ground. His cheeks had been torn by his enormous smile, which bled profusely. I screeched and ran the fuck out of there. I made the mistake of turning back as I exited the basement and saw the thing made of static was jerkily flailing up the staircase after me, stretching and bulging and warping the walls around it. The grinding of the backwards music station again assaulted my ears louder than it ever had before. I shut the door and sprinted out of the house. I planned to run the rest of the way home, but stopped at a payphone to call an ambulance. I figured it was the least I could do for my friends after I had brought this thing to them, had killed them all in horrible, impossible ways. So I called and told them there had been an accident at the house, gave them the address, and hung up. I walked to my house and flailingly attempted to parse what I had seen. I knew then that this thing was real. Not a dream, not a hallucination. It was real. And as I thought about it and walked home, listening to the distant blare of the ambulances whose paramedics would discover the mangled bodies of my friends, I thought of a name for the horrific thing that had killed them. The Garbled Man. It should be noted that the victim's injuries almost matched the descriptions provided at this point in the journal. July 20th, 2:38 a.m. I'm terrified. I have no idea what to do. So this thing is real. It is. It really is. Oh, for fuck's sake. Get a grip, man. But get a grip on what? If this shit is reality, I don't want to grip it. No, I have to. I can't die. I won't lose to this thing. It may have taken my friends, but it won't take me. You hear that, Garbled Man? Fuck you. Your parents, your grandparents, your ancestors, your people to your dimension, and the fucking horse you rode in on. July 22nd, 6:09 a.m. I have since discovered that I can no longer sleep. Whenever I close my eyes, all I see is bright, grainy static. I tried to use my computer the first night I returned. It screeched at me with the electronic fury of the Garbled Man, and I threw it out my window. I can still faintly hear its demonic cries. I tried my cell phone, but it made the same noise as did my landline. I stuffed them in a box and piled clothes on top of them, but I can hear them nonetheless. I still go to work, because I'm not going to let this thing win without putting up one hell of a fight. They've probably noticed there's something wrong with me by now. My pale skin, the dark rings under my eyes, my prolonged, glassy stares. I'm not sure how much longer I can keep up the charade that I'm not, in fact, being tormented by a supernatural and possibly extra-dimensional creature. As always, book. Wish me luck. July 26, 3:54 a.m. I was put on sick leave 3 days ago. I haven't left the house since. A day ago, physics ceased to apply to my living space. Doorknobs warp around my hand whenever I attempt to grab them. Streams of water from my taps bend away from my mouth or cup and instead hit the wall or ceiling. The food in my fridge has arranged itself into a grid of floating cubes which shrink away from my grasp. But I have learned something. I no longer fear or hate the Garbled Man. I respect him. These are trials he's putting me through. If I endure, I will be rewarded. The night visits were the first trial, to test if I was worthy of what was to follow. The deaths of my friends were the second trial. This loss of logic in my house is the third. I will survive. Book. I will survive. July 28th, 8:34 p.m. The walls bulge and shrink. The floor bowls and peaks. Still no sleep. Still no water. Still no food. But I will go on. For the Garbled Man. For the Garbled Man, our savior. July 33rd, 1952 p.m. So thirsty, so tired. Not sure if I can live much more. Window gone. Doorways move at night. I hear walls shift in my house, become labyrinth. No escape. No escape. Help me, book. Help me. Garbled Man. August 1st, 10:13 a.m. I was rewarded. I look back at my last entry and realize just how delirious and on the brink I was. But the Garbled Man saved me. He fed me and returned me to health, or I believe he did. All I know is I remember nothing about writing the previous entry and simply woke up this morning feeling a bit drowsy and shaky, but otherwise fit as a fiddle. I went outside today and retrieved the remains of my computer from the street. I set it down at my table, and as soon as I turned my back, the comforting sounds of the backwards music station issued forth from it. Then it cut out, and I heard speech. Human speech. It told me I had done well, that I had passed the test. It told me I could now go and meet my savior. It gave me numbers that I soon figured out were GPS coordinates, and assurance that I would find the Garbled Man there. I packed up, and I'm about to get in my truck. I no longer need your luck, dear book. For now, I have that of the Garbled Man. August 2nd, 7:33 a.m. I came to a motel last night and was tired from the journey. I forgot to write this, but the Garbled Man watches over me and assists me. When the people running the place asked me for my credit card, I realized that in my haste to begin this journey, I had forgotten my wallet. As I stalled for time, my heart sinking, I saw the Garbled Man glitch into being behind the woman who was demanding my card. I looked at him happily, with relief, the sweet harmony of the backwards music station filling my ears, and watched with glee as he jerkily moved his long fingers around the woman's head, at which point she stopped talking, her mouth agape and her eyes bulging, and her head began to collapse inwards on itself, shrinking to a small fleshy point. She took in a final death rattle and fell to the floor. My problem has been taken care of. I silently thanked him, and he almost appeared to nod his head at me. Then he bounded off into the night, and I retrieved the key for my room. At this motel, a day after the date listed, the corpse of a woman was discovered in the check-in office under the front desk. Her skull had been completely bashed in by a blunt object, but tenants of the motel who were present on the listed date don't report hearing anything unusual nor any date near it. Much like the other victims, no evidence was found that the woman had been gagged, drugged, or in any way prevented from screaming during her murder. August 2nd, 1:36 p.m. Stopped at another diner on the final leg of my journey. I can feel the Garbled Man's pull. It's strong. I yearn for the black embrace of his wonderful eyes, and for his beautiful song. I'm almost there, book. I'm close now. Very close. August 3rd, 2:25 a.m. I'm here. I am finally here. The Garbled Man gave me the strength to power through all last night, and now I've arrived at the place. It's an abandoned military base. The base, according to a rusted sign near the entrance. I can feel myself being drawn toward it, almost like a magnet. The base is old and crumbling, the entrance half buried in sand. But I can see what's been broadcasting the backwards music station. Before me stands a massive radio tower, with some pieces missing, leaning a bit to one side, but apparently still functional nonetheless. I'm quivering with excitement. Already I can hear the sweet sounds of the broadcast floating out of a hole in the entrance door. I'm coming. My lord. All hail our savior, the Garbled Man. There are no further journal entries. The truck and journal of the missing person were discovered near the entrance of the base during a routine security sweep, but that is all that remains of them. No definitive connections between the US military base and any number stations are known to exist. This remains an unresolved case.